I am a little bit late again, but for good reason this time. The wind is howling outside, by the way, so there is going to be a little bit of noise that is going to come through. Cape Town is extremely hectic at the moment, but we're surviving. But today we're going to be doing the 4070 Ti Super, the overclock edition from Gigabyte. Now, the good reason to which it's late is because I've finally been able to standardize all of my data across all of my testing. It's taken quite a while, actually years, in order to be able to perfect this method. It seems simple in practice, but you'll see what the results are as they come along. The only negative at the moment is that we don't have that much comparable data, but as time goes by, we're going to have perfect comparable data to be able to say what is better than what and the reasons why.
This video was sponsored by SocialBee. SocialBee is an AI-powered social media management tool that integrates all of your social media into one convenient hub. From content categorization, AI-generated social media plan, single source posting, AI-assisted content generation, scheduling, and even comprehensive analytics with competitor insights, SocialBee will not only help you streamline and optimize your content, but save you hours, which you can use to conceptualize and produce content. Use code CLOVER50X3 for 50% off your first 3 months.
Now, just a question to you guys out there. Do you want me to share my testing data? It is something that I have asked in the community poll. The reason that I ask is because I want to spend less time actually reading out the results and more focusing on what the actual results mean. This means that the videos are more short, but more condensed and to the point, and you're able to read all that analytical data by yourself, but maybe leave a comment in the comment section saying, yeah, agree or no, we actually want you to speak to everything. It's just something that I wanted to bring across. But on to the man of the hour, the 4070 Ti Super from Gigabyte. Now, we're not going to go over the design and specifications. We pretty much covered that when we went over the 4070 Super. They look identical, and I will show you some B-roll to actually show they do look identical. It's just a different actual GPU chiplet inside the graphics card or the AIB. But the most important thing that we are going to be looking at today is the testing results. So let's jump into that.
So to tell you what we were testing on, the CPU is going to be the standard 7800X3D until further notice. The motherboard is the ASRock X670E Taichi Carrara. The RAM is the Crucial Pro DDR5 3200 at 5600 megahertz or MTS, but this would have affected the results only a little bit until I upgrade to 6400, so we can give or take a 1 to 2% differential on what you could expect should you be at the high NTS. The SSD was the Crucial P5 Plus 1 terabyte. The PSU was the Cooler Master Watt Maker 1200 watt. The GPU was obviously the Gigabyte 4070 Ti Super Overclock Edition. The cooler was the Corsair A115. That's super monstrosity, but it is a great air cooler. And the case is an open airframe case, which is the Master Frame 700 from Cooler Master. But on to the results. The Time Spy and Time Spy Extreme scores, this will favor your more 1440 and a 2160 or 4K gaming results. For Time Spy, we had 21384 for the 4070 Ti Super versus 17,335 for the 7800 XT, which starts with RX. Then for Time Spy Extreme, 10,323 versus 8163. So there we know that for both 1440 and 2160, we are well optimized on the NVIDIA architecture. Moving on to Firestrike Extreme, and Firestrike Ultra, which does favor more 1080p. So you are going to need to have a good CPU to attain good results, because the lower the resolution, the higher strain it's going to put on your CPU. And this is why I use the 7800X 3D. But we have a Firestrike score of 44,210 on the NVIDIA 4070 Ti Super versus 39,130. Onto Firestrike Extreme, 27,516 versus 22,851. Firestrike Ultra, 14,749 versus 12,152. Then for Speedway, which is a good blend of testing, we had a 6,342 versus 3,729. So good score coming in there. and for Port Royale 15,667 versus the 10,163 of the 7800 XT. Just note that going forward, I'm not going to be reading out the scores every single time. We're just going to be summarizing in general. But what we can conclude from this is in 1080, 1440, and 2160 gameplay, you are going to be well served with a 4070 Ti Super, but this is from the test that we have thus far. But you can take these scores if you are interested to see how it performs against a certain graphics card so you can make your purchasing decision easier. Onto gaming benchmarks. Now, what I've done is I've included the average frame rate as well as the 99th percentile. So we'll start off with Avatar Frontiers of Pandora in 1080, 1440, and 2160. There's no real need to say anything. We can see that in 1080, 1440, and 2160, the 4070 Ti Super did a phenomenal job, and we will have more comparative data in the future. Moving on to Total War Warhammer 3, which is included in the suite because it's more of a CPU bound test, so we can see how the graphic card scales with the CPU, and we can see the results from 1080 all the way to 2160. And this is pretty much symmetric in that the 4070 Ti Super was leading the charts there too. Moving on to Formula One 2021, which will be updated to 2024 come May, but we have our scores there of 1080 to 2160. Nothing of import to note. It's pretty much similar to what we have been seeing from the Avatar as well as Warhammer benchmark. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A Far Cry 6, and the reason I include Far Cry 6 is because it's actually optimized or well optimized for Radeon, and we can see just how well optimized because this is the only score in which the 7800 XT actually outperformed the 4070 Ti Super. In 1080, 1440, 2160, we can see the results there. And especially in 1080p gaming, we've got far better 1 percentile as well as average FPS. It starts to descale as soon as we get down to 2160, but the 7800 XT is still dominating there. Lastly, we've got Talos Principle 2, which is a absolute monster on your graphics card and probably the lowest scores we'll see. I've included this in the benchmark suites because it puts the most amount of pressure on a GPU, well, at least from the game suites that I've tested so far. And again, we go to the similar mirror that we saw in the first three, in that the 4070 Ti Super dominates from 1080 to 2160. Onto stats, and we're going to start off with max temperatures. The reason I use max temperatures is because we want to see how the cooling of the graphics card does at its highest point or when it's being worked the hardest. Now we can see that it does phenomenally well. Well, the 4070 Ti Super, well, both do, but we've got scores of 64, 65, 62, 61 under max strain. The 7800 XT a degree or two off of that. Moving on to max wattage. Now note that the 4070 Ti Super has a max TGP of 285, and it just slipped slightly over that when we hit times by extreme. So pretty much on the mark of where it says it's going to be, and this will obviously increase if you overclock. So doing well with its management there. And on the RX 7800 XT, which is called TBP, we had a score of 266 pretty much throughout all the tests, but 3D Mark Speedway having a score of 264, which is negligible. So not much to note there, just noting that this graphics card in particular, the Gigabyte edition, is pulling what it promises. Onto the last test, which is max clock. I'm not going to go too much into this, but we can see that it is pushing really high and really well at 2835 on the time spy, and the highest result there of time spy extreme hitting 2912. So nice frequencies coming out of the graphics cards while maintaining the promised wattage at low temperatures. So all in all, the Gigabyte overclock edition of the 4070 Ti Super delivering on what it says it's going to do.
So the card did perform phenomenally well. It gave us some really good results and at really good temperatures. The conclusion is that obviously we need more testing data to say beyond a question of a doubt that this card is better than that card and so on, but we'll get this as time goes by. The real thing that I want to say is that I don't think that you're going to go wrong with this card. I've tested enough graphics cards, CPUs, systems in my life to be able to know when something's a good value for money purchase, and I really think this is good because it really gained at good temperatures. The max that we really saw in actuality was around 64 degrees. And when driver updates come out, we are going to be able to squeeze more performance out of this card, and you still have the ability to overclock. That is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, feel free to ask questions in the comment section below, and I'll get to them as quick as possible. Cheers. Goodbye.